Welcome to the Walk-Thru with 5-Star Preps, the ultimate weekly live show that dives deep into the heart of high school football right here in East Tennessee. Powered by Triple F Training. Train like a pro. Each week, Jesse Smithy and the 5-Star Prep team takes you beyond the gridiron and into the stories that define Fall Friday nights in the hills of the Great Smoky Mountains. From the thrilling touchdowns to the hard-hitting tackles and the unsung heroes who make every game unforgettable, we've got it all covered. Join Jesse Smithy as he breaks down this week's biggest games, highlights the standout performances, and gives you the most comprehensive high school football coverage in East Tennessee. Now, catch us live on the Walk-Thru, presented by Triple F Training.
Welcome into the Walk-Thru round 2 already. Paige Dower alongside Jesse Smithy, of course, always presented by Triple F. And as you can see, our background looks a little different. We've got some decorations up this time. But is it controversial that it's Christmas decorations before Thanksgiving?
I'm all about it now.
Are you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like around COVID years when it became socially acceptable to put out Christmas, to cheer yourself up, even if it's before Thanksgiving. Now, when it was Halloween, they told me Lee Smith, the owner of Triple F, loves Halloween, and so we had that scary, sketchy, whatever thing, that witch or whatever by the door.
It was scary.
But I feel like he's more of a Christmas person. I mean, you probably can't see it, but there's an inflatable Santa way up there. There's a Christmas tree back behind the camera. There's a Santa by the door.
Yep.
There's a Christmas tree over there. So it's festive in here. There's a ton of people in here tonight. We got volleyball going on. We got the typical Bible study with pizza, and it just feels like there's a little more spunk in the place tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on top of all of that, we'll get to our high school football state playoffs, and coming up throughout the segments today, we'll hear from Brent Hughes of Halls, and we'll also hear from Stanton Stevens, the first-year head coach at Austin East. So we have so much great content coming up. But before we get to round 2, I want to look a little bit at week 1 or round 1 of the state playoffs. Lenoir City triple overtime.
Right.
Incredible.
It was one of those games where you monitor it on Twitter and it's 7-0 going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Lenoir City's winning, and you're going, okay, well, maybe they just hang on. If Walker Valley ties it, maybe Lenoir City gets a 10-7 win.
Yeah.
And you get distracted. You start doing interviews and stuff late on Friday night. Next thing you know, like, I can't find a score for that game. And I'm looking on social media. The next thing I know, it's triple overtime. And so it ended up being a wild finish, and Lenoir City gets that win. And when you're a first-year coach like Scott Cummings is at Lenoir City, and you can write down at the end of the year, we made the playoffs, we won a playoff game, and then whatever else happens, he's just playing with house money at this point. And so he's in a great position. I heard he did an interview with the local station on Friday night and was just over the moon excited.
Oh, I love that.
And so that lets me know that, yeah, he's excited about the triple overtime win, but you start looking ahead, and we'll get to some of these matchups later in the night. There's an absolute feasible chance Lenoir City could make it to the state semifinals.
Yeah.
And it's not the most talented Lenoir City team, but they have a grit and will about them and a defensive fight, and so we'll see what happens. But triple overtime win, that was one of the wilder games of round 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime it goes into overtime in the first week, you always have to be like, wait, I need to find out what's going on. Then we turn our attention to D2, Division 2 within the private sector. I guess when we look at Grace Christian, we're not surprised they're in round 2, but maybe a little surprised that they're the only one.
I thought Catholic would have a chance to go on the road to MUS and win that football game. MUS is not a good football team this year. You looked at their stats. There's nothing that jumped off the page. There was no 1,500-yard rusher. There was no 2,000-yard passer. They hardly turn teams over, and you go, okay, this is just a want-to game. And Catholic just did not play good football that night, and that shocked me a little bit that they didn't. So MUS ended up winning that football game. Webb loses to BGA, so we don't get our Webb versus Webb matchup against the Feet. And TKA bowed out as well. CAK got beat by the defending state champion CPA, which is who Grace has to play this week. So just one team remaining in D2, and that'll be Grace Christian this Friday night on the road at Christ Presbyterian Academy. Defending state champion, just loaded with talent.
Yeah, that's going to be a good game.
It's going to be a tough one.
I think maybe I'm putting too much blame on you or too much credit to you, but when we mentioned last week that like 25% of these teams all have losing records, so we're destined for a Cinderella story or at least some shocks. Okay, these first 2 games we're already seeing some shocks.
Absolutely.
Maybe the most impressive is Austin East getting a first-round victory.
They were 0-7 at one point this year. 0-7, we'd forgotten about them, and you just start to look at it and go, man, Stanton Stevens has some major rebuilding to do. I didn't know it was going to be this bad.
Yeah.
And then you turn your head, and here they are in round 2 against Alcoa. Now, nobody in Tennessee within the borders is going to pick Austin East to upset Alcoa. And Stanton Stevens, we'll hear from him later in the show. He likes that. He likes that motivation. But we'll talk with him about why there's been a turnaround at Austin East, when he saw that turnaround, and how excited he is for the future. So a lot of that and more to come with that talk with Stanton Stevens, but really cool to see Austin East still going on.
They've now won their last 4 games after starting with, just straight losses.
Yeah, they went on the road and just put a beat down on a Johnson County team. Now, Johnson County was without their star running back, but still, that's a long bus trip, and for a team that hasn't had too much success in the playoffs, it was a really impressive win.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on the other side to the excitement, there's a little bit of a letdown, and it comes to the Farragut Admirals. It's back-to-back seasons where they're seeing just 4 wins in the win column. They're out in the second round. They lose again the second time this season to Dobbins Bennett. This one, the margin a little bit greater. I think it was 42-24.
One of those cases where we're in our bubble here, and we see Farragut, and we see them win 4 games in a row and almost beat Maryville in week 11. And you look at their schedule, you see that week 1. Well, they only lost to Dobbins Bennett by 7. Farragut's so much better now. Farragut's going to win this football game. Well, guess what? Dobbins Bennett can get better too, and we don't see them. We don't see them, so we don't see them. And they weren't supposed to win that region up there. Science Hill was. So I don't know. In my mind, I was just like, well, maybe that was just a fluke.
Maybe they got the win.
Yeah, maybe that was just a fluke in week 11. Farragut go on the road. Farragut hung around for a while, but ultimately DB just pulled away. And we'll see how Bearden handles them up there in Dobbins Bennett. That's a double-decker stadium. It's a massive place and a really difficult place to win.
Yeah, so we'll definitely talk about that in our win-loss projections with Waffle House coming up. Another shocking victory was Rockwood stunning Cosby. And it was interesting because Rockwood entered 4-6. Cosby was 8-2 on the year. So that was definitely a surprise, similar to like an Austin East surprise you were just not expecting.
No, because this was a Cosby team that all season long you heard rumblings about, like, this is a special team. We got a sophomore quarterback that's going to be a real deal. We got this guy's going to be a real deal. The whole community, when Cosby's good at something, whether it's basketball, football, whatever, they go all in. It was a big deal up there this past Friday night. They were trying to get their first ever postseason win. Wow. And so they finally felt like this was the team to do it. But that's the thing about first round games, and so much pressure is put on you. If things start off a little dicey, you start pressing a little bit, and the next thing you know, it's playoff loss. So Cosby will learn from that. I mentioned a few of their star players are just sophomores, so I suspect we'll see more of them in the future. But Peyton Presley, the running back at Rockwood, just had a field day up there, over 200 yards rushing. And John Webb, the football coach at Rockwood, I've said it a long time, doesn't get enough credit for how good he is year in and year out, and yet another playoff win for him.
Yeah, another mismatch that we saw. It was Bearden and Jefferson County, so 49-14 the win for the Bulldogs. I think that was the most points they've scored all season long for the Bulldogs, and it came at the right time. It's
one of the most impressive offensive and defensive performances that I can remember under Josh Jones. Yeah. Just all of it coming together at one time, and just the perfect time to do that. And DJ Hunter at quarterback, who's had up and down this season, looked like a guy who's played 50 high school football games. It just was so easy to him, flicking the ball down the field, 337 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, also ran for 2 touchdowns. The defense played lights out. The kicking game is healthy and producing at Bearden. Bearden is exactly where it needs to be in the playoffs in terms of just ultimate confidence and belief.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, still to come, we have Brent Hughes of Halls and Stanton Stevens of Austin East coming up after this.
When you shop at Elliott's, your journey is our purpose.
North Knox Siding and Windows is a complete exterior home improvement company that can help you with all your exterior needs. Visit us today at 5618 North Broadway.
Welcome back into the Walk-Thru Paged Hour. Jesse Smithy. We're not going to do our Waffle House win-loss projections, but before we get to that, coming up later, it might be state playoffs for high school football, but it's also the first week of flag football for girls football here in East Tennessee. Started in Middle Tennessee earlier, but now we have it here in East Tennessee, and we'll have some highlights coming up at the end of the show.
Yeah, and by all accounts, what happened in Middle Tennessee was an absolute smash hit.
Yeah.
And so we're trying it here in Knox County. Everybody's on board. Even Anderson County is kind of throwing a team in the league. There won't be a postseason, I've been told, but they'll play all the way through December 9th. And they satellite out the game. So at Hardin Valley, there's 3 games. At Austin East, there's 3 games. At Central, there's 3 games. And so it's a nice thing to have each and every week on Monday. So we're going to have coverage of it on the website, try to keep up with scores and stats and show you guys some highlights. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and if you can still celebrate SEC regular season championship wins, you can celebrate a regular season championship in flag football. But we're going to go ahead and get to our win-loss projections for our Waffle House segment. And we're going to start with Harriman and Coalfield, which is 2 teams we've talked a lot about this season. So we know that this is going to be a really great matchup in single A.
Yeah, we know Harriman's going to run the football too. Cam Anderson, their quarterback, had 181 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns a week ago. So you couple that production with what Grayson Christ can do at running back, and Harriman definitely has a formidable run game, but Coalfield has seen that run game, and they've handled that run game. Earlier in the season, it was a tight football game there for a while, and then Coalfield just kind of pushed ahead and dominated there in the second half. Coalfield very much wants to get back to the state championship game. They very much want to play Oliver Springs next week in that quarterfinal game. So they're going to be highly motivated to win this football game. I like Coalfield to win, but I do want to see if Harriman can kind of close that gap.
Sure.
If that running game with their quarterback and Grayson can make it a little interesting into the fourth quarter. We'll see.
Well, you mentioned Oliver Springs. That's our next team. They're taking on Rockwood, who had a shocking week 1, round 1 win. But this is a very lopsided rivalry, 40 wins to about 26 for Rockwood. Oliver Springs, they won the last 2 meetings. I don't see maybe where that changes here in this meeting.
I talk about the tail of the tape in boxing terms so much on this show. And for this one, it's a heavy favorite with Oliver Springs. Again, they faced Rockwood in the regular season, handled that. And is just as much as Coalfield wants to play Oliver Springs in that quarterfinal game, Oliver Springs wants to get back at Coalfield for that regular season loss in the region championship. They were without a key defensive lineman in that loss to Coalfield earlier in the season, so they get him back, and we'll see what they can do in that rematch if they are to get past Rockwood. But to me, I think Oliver Springs is the heavy favorite in that one. I'll take Oliver Springs.
Yeah, seeing Gatlinburg-Pittman continue to stay strong in the playoffs, not much of a surprise. We'll take on Unico County as well in round 2. Seemingly could be something that goes in the Highlanders' favor.
Yeah, and Unicoi County this year has 1 loss, and it's the GP.
Yeah.
And so what Gatlinburg-Pittman was able to do on the road last week, to go to Kingston, make that long trip to Kingston, you face 2 1,000-yard rushers, and they absolutely pressed the mute button.
Incredible.
Yeah, press the mute button on that Kingston run game. So that lets me know they're locked in defensively. They can handle what Unicoi County throws at them here in the second round, and they can handle winning on the road. That's hard to do in the playoffs.
Yes.
That shows you that they are mentally where they need to be. Braden Maples, their star running back, 10 yards a carry this year.
Wow.
He's back and healthy, and they've seen growth at the quarterback position at GP. So give me the Highlanders to win again over Unicoi.
Yeah, I like that pick. Our next one, we have Elizabethton and Anderson County. Interesting when I was looking back at their record, which is 5-2 in AC's favor. 5 of their meetings have come in the second round. This will now be the 6th time they've met in the second round.
This used to be a game that would have Anderson County pulling its hair out. They could not beat Greenville. They could not beat Elizabethton, and now the tables have turned. Now they're the 1 seed, which Elizabethton is probably not supposed to beat.
Right.
And so this is an opportunity for Anderson County to keep paying them back a little bit for all those losses back 5 or 6 years ago when we go up there, and Anderson County so much wanted to be a state champion in 4A, but just couldn't get over the hurdle. Well, now they are the hurdle. And so for Elizabethton, probably not talented enough to win this game against Anderson County this year. They've done a good job to get to week 11 to challenge Greenville for region championship. They did not win that game. And then they rallied against Fulton last week to win that football game 14-13. So I think Coach Witten at Elizabethton has gotten everything he could out of this team, but they're not good enough to beat Anderson County this year.
Yeah, you mentioned Greenville, and that's who Gibbs will play. And after they got their round 1 win, they now have 10 wins on the season for the first time since they had 11 in 2010.
Yeah, and they want to get to that 11 win total and see if they can push it even beyond that. They're very much continuing to get better as a program. We've documented that on this show and talked about it many times. And there's only one way to keep climbing that ladder, and that's to beat a program like Greenville. Now, Greenville's got major star power at Carson Quillen, 27 rushing touchdowns this year. But the game changer that's happened with Greenville, Paige, is Zayden Anderson, wide receiver, track star. Last year, we expected a breakout season from him. We didn't get it. Now it's his time. Now he's really turned into a guy that's averaging 25, 30 yards a catch. He's got 25 catches this year, 10 of them are for touchdowns.
Oh, my goodness.
So I like Greenville to win this football game. But
that pass defense needs to be on alert.
I could make a feasible case, though, for Gibbs to win. I mean, they're that good, and I know they're going to challenge Greenville as best they can, but it's at Greenville. The comfort level, I think, helps Greenville get this win.
Yeah, and maybe someone else who has this underdog mentality, like we mentioned earlier, is the Austin East Road Runners, and Jesse Smithy had a chance to catch up with their head coach, Stanton Stevens, ahead of round 2.
Stanton, I know we talked at Media Day and how excited you were to be back at Austin East, and the season obviously did not get off to the start that you wanted wins and loss-wise, but for you guys to still be in the playoffs in the second round, what's happened? What's led to this turnaround?
The kids. It's always about the kids, and I can't stress that enough. They turned around, and they were hungry to be coached. They wanted to win. We just didn't really know how for a while. And, we didn't have the same big play guys that they had in years past. And we had some guys who had to grind it out and play football a different kind of way. And they accepted the challenge. All the things that we asked them to do, they were working hard to do them. And we had some ups and some downs, but it went in a pretty straight line up, since we got there. And the result is right now we're in the second round of playoffs.
Young head coaches or guys that may be in their second or third year could probably get frustrated when the season doesn't start off like that. Did being a veteran head coach help with that, or did you get frustrated and have some low moments?
Well, one of my best buddies is Coach Quayu Graham, and we talk all the time, and we like to tell each other we're probably as good a coaches as we've been, and it's experience more than anything. It's not that we've learned some secrets that no one else knows. We've learned that over time you just have to stay patient, believe and trust that your process will work, and it's working.
Juwan Troutman was somebody that we honor here today for his, performance in that round 1 win. Can you speak about him and just kind of the roles that he's filled in his time?
Well, I'll tell you this. You have guys that play certain positions. He was a starting quarterback. He's probably been quarterback most of his high school career. And when the time came and we needed to make a change, he went to receiver and was eager to be a part of us being successful. No complaints. Of course, he wants to still play quarterback, but he plays receiver like, that's what he's been doing his whole life. Friday night, evident of that. I mean, he caught the ball really well. He attacked once he caught his run after the catch. It's impressive. I can't say enough about that young man. And he went through some battles. And so I feel really good to watch him succeed. And that's what makes me so proud of not only him, but the entire team and a lot of those seniors who were maligned and people told me, "Oh, Coach, when you get rid of those seniors, you'll be good." And the more I'm around, the more I'm like, no, I wish I had them longer. I wish they weren't seniors. I wish I could continue to coach them, because those guys have earned my respect and my loyalty, my love. I mean, those guys grow on you, and we're in this to make it about the kids, and that senior class, I want to give them as many games as they can possibly have. And we've got a tough one against Alcoa Friday night, but we're going to go in with the attitude of we're still Austin East, and we're just going to roll the dice and see what happens.
When you shop at Elliott's, your journey is our purpose.
North Knox Siding and Windows is a complete exterior home improvement company that can help you with all your exterior needs. Visit us today at 5618 North Broadway.
Welcome back to the Walk-Thru presented by Triple F. Jesse Smithy joined by Hall's football coach Brent Hughes. And Brent, it's been a successful run for Hall's again this year, and now into the second round of the playoffs. Just what do you like, the momentum, just everything that you're seeing on the field about your football team?
You know, this season's been one of those kind of up and down years for us as far as, growth, and we replaced everybody up front on offensive and defensive line coming into this season. So the hope as a coach in a perfect scenario was that, you were able to compete and win games and allow this young offensive line and young defensive line to grow and battle in games. And, we finished the season 7-3, lost a couple tight games. And, I really feel like right now our football team is playing its best football. And, that's all you can ask for as a head coach at this time of the year is, young guys, there's no excuse of being young anymore. You've had enough football. So, I really like where our head is as a football team. And, the good thing about young kids is sometimes they don't know the pressure because they've never had it before. Yeah. And so, I really feel like right now, Hall's football is playing its best football.
How did the guys that were returning starters, whether it was Amari at quarterback or Marcus at running back, or you got Drew Ross at tight end or wide receiver, you got all these skill guys who are at one level in terms of on-field maturity, and then you're trying to bring about a completely new offensive line. How do you keep them patient at that early points in the season?
I think at the end of the day, you try to give them the big picture, like, hey, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Like, our season ain't over just after one game, right? And so the biggest thing was they knew going into it that we were going to, be young up front. But I think what gave them confidence was early on in our scrimmages in the fall, how we competed. And then, as the season progressed, they did just enough to allow those guys to be special. And then what you've seen so far is now these kids are playing really good football for us right now and, allowing our special athletes to be special.
Yeah, you use the word special, and I know you've talked about Amari Lethgo, the quarterback at Halls, in glowing terms quite a bit this year. He was one of the breakout players, I think, of last year, but how has he been good last year to great now?
Yeah, I think it's just he's a humble kid. He is, he's my daughter's favorite player. And so, and that's just who he is. He's just a great kid. He wants to be great. He's a natural competitor. And, you just watch how he carries himself. And he does the same thing on the baseball field, He's his worst critic. And so one of the things that, I've had to tell our coaches and Coach Parton and others is like, hey, just tell him what you need to do to fix it because, he's going to be his worst critic, and, I promise you he's going to be the guy that, stays afterwards and fixes it, and he's just a natural leader. As soon as he walks in the room, people feel his presence. And, our kids believe in him and, they want to play well for him and he wants to do the same for them. And so what you've seen is that jump from sophomore to junior in growth is not just the stats, but it's the leadership. And, I couldn't be more proud of him.
Last week you get that kind of monkey off your back, and sometimes winning that first playoff game is hard. It's a different feel, a different environment. At any moment a critical play could happen and the season could end. So I feel like once you get that first win under your belt, you can breathe a little bit more going forward. What have you seen out of your team just in practice this week in terms of that?
Well, I think, really against Morristown West, they're a really good football team, very physical. And so I felt like we really controlled that game the majority of the game. And I really felt like the score was, we could have, we left a lot of scores out there on the field and didn't execute properly. And so, like you said, though, you just try to find a way. And, and we battled and hung in there and we won. And so now, it's that big relief. Okay, we've done it. So now you can't talk about beating West until you beat Morristown West. You can't talk about third round until you win the second round. But now that you've initiated that first step, then now you've got kids that can believe and say, hey, look, we can go out there and compete with anybody. Now, we're not just going to go out there and say we're winning. We can't just say that, but we have to go out there and do it and compete every play. Now, to beat a team like West, that team is so special in its right mind that they find ways to win, and so to beat teams like that, you have to be disciplined, attention to detail every snap, not just for the first quarter, the second quarter, the third, and the parts of the fourth, but every snap. And so that's going to be the tough task. And our kids know that, and they're excited about the opportunity and challenge. Nobody expects them to win. And so, the expectation may not be big in the eyes of others, but the expectation is big in our locker room. We want to go out there and just play our best football and see what happens.
Y'all were toe-to-toe with them just a couple of weeks ago. I think it was a 28-27 football game in overtime. Elected to go for 2 right there at the end. But you turned the ball, you guys turned them over, a handful of times. I think y'all converted a lot of third, fourth downs against them. And what sense of confidence do you derive from that game that you can take into this rematch?
I think the sense of confidence would be we were close, but at the end of the day, that team found a way to win, and we didn't. Just because you played them close the first time doesn't guarantee that you're going to win the second time. Right. There is an old saying, it's hard to beat a good team twice, but, at the end of the day, I expect West High School to give us their best game, and their best game is pretty good. So I think at the end of the day, for us, we control what we can control, go out there, compete, battle, be gritty like we have all season, and let's just see what happens.
One of the things that we're enjoying about Hall's football from a media perspective is the more you guys win, the more we show up. Obviously, that's just kind of how media works sometimes. Right. And we're learning more about some of these really good football players that you have. You told us about Brody Rogers in the preseason. You said, hey, he's going to be out there wearing number 0 and he's going to be making plays. And then Dom Culp on the defensive line has been just an absolute boss this year. Tell us about those 2 guys and what you've seen out of them since week 1.
Hey, guys that we expected to be dudes coming into the season. Both are just, Brody is one of the most high competitive players I've ever coached. He's special. Last year he played outside linebacker and kind of, a hybrid sniffer receiver for us. And going into this year, I just felt like I said he needs to kind of be our go-to guy. And he trains really hard in the off season, and he's kind of conditioned his body. He reminds me of an old school football player that just doesn't come off the field. Nowadays, you have guys that only go one way or whatever, but he's just an old school football player that's got an old soul that doesn't come off the field, and he's just special. He finds the ball, and he may not be the fastest or whatever, the tallest, but at receiver, he makes it hard on people, and he's very special. And him and Mari have a great connection. They're best friends, and so that makes it even better. And then Dom Culp, he's a kid that he's one of those that frustrates you, because you're sitting there, it's like talking to your daughter or your son, and you're trying to tell them what they're doing, and they're not looking at you, and you're just like, dadgummit, he better be listening, right? And then he goes out there and he does it to the full extent, because he's got such a high IQ. He loves football. He watches football constantly, and even when I don't think he's listening, he's listening. And and we put him in a situation to, don't be a robot, to go be special. The position he plays is what we call the devil, and we don't overcoach it. Go be special, dude. And that's just kind of my philosophy a little bit. And we just put him in a situation to showcase his talent, and he's having a great year. Could be happy for both of them.
Well, Brent, man, I appreciate you joining us tonight here on the Walk-Thru. And as Hall's football coach, Brent Hughes, good luck to you guys in the second round. And don't you guys go anywhere. We got more previews, more picks to come right here on the Walk-Thru right after this break.
When you shop at Elliott's, your journey is our purpose.
North Knox Siding and Windows is a complete exterior home improvement company that can help you with all your exterior needs. Visit us today at 5618 North Broadway.
Welcome back into the Walk-Thru. Paige Dower, Jesse Smithy. Watching the interview you had with Brenton Hughes, had a bit of a different look, kind of a shaved head. It looks buzzed cut now.
Yeah.
Are you superstitious as well?
I'm not superstitious. I probably was a long time ago when I was actively in sports. You just have certain routines that you get into, but I think that was a motivational tactic for his team. He told me, he's like, look, my wife even hasn't seen it yet. So a little bit of a surprise for Mrs. Hughes when he got home tonight. But I love watching Brent coach because he's so energetic and passionate about what he does, and he'll do anything for his kids.
Yeah, and if they're going to be willing to do that, I will be very interested to see what happens Friday when Halls and West have another rematch, because their regular season game, 28-27, 5 turnovers, I think it was, by West, went into overtime. Jordan Hayes gets the interception at the end to seal the win for West. Kind of every storyline you needed. You had it in that game, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe something similar happens again in round 2.
Yeah, you just get the sense from Brent Hughes that they're going to play up the underdog role.
Yeah.
I mean, West is the 2-time defending state champion in this game. Everybody probably says, well, Halls shouldn't have beat or even come close to beating them in the regular season. So they want to take that shock the world mentality into West High School in round 2. Can they do it? They have the quarterback to do it. They have the running back to do it. They have the wide receivers to do it. They have the defense to do it. It's just all about it's about execution. And as Brent mentioned in that interview, West finds a way to win. And that's what championship programs do. Even when they don't have their A game, they find a way to win. That's where Halls is trying to get to. I don't suspect that West is going to turn the football over 5 times, a second time against Halls High School. I'm seeing something in just the leadership of Jack Keith and Antoine Burdine, and Tavion Ray is really coming on at running back, I've seen over the last few weeks. So West is just feeling like a state championship contender again to me. I'm going to take West.
Yeah, and speaking of those 2 players, Antoine Burdine and
Jack Keith.
Yes, Jack Keith. So I talked to Antoine Burdine after the game, and I said, okay, what's the message heading into round 2? He's like, we coming. I was like, yeah, that's essentially all you need to say. Yeah. And Tavion Ray, I mean, he's someone that Lamar Brown says has gained a lot of confidence in the back half of the season because of his work ethic. He struggled early in the season with fumbles and not being able to get past that first point of contact. He looks like a completely different running back here in the back half of the season.
Well, and he's a guy that coming into this year, they had a lot of expectations for, and he looks the part.
He does.
But the production wasn't there. And then you saw Messiah Wren kind of step to the forefront there for a while at RB1 for West High School. And now we're seeing, again, Tavion Ray's production to go up, and that's just maturation.
Yeah, so our next one we have Powell and Sevier County. So Sevier County's won 7 of the 4, or the record is 7-4, and they're undefeated on the season. So
undefeated on the season, and nobody's even come close to beating them, and that includes that game against Central last week in round 1. And Cooper Newman, the quarterback, still has not thrown an interception, but this will be, this will be the most difficult team that they've played this year. You can just look at the schedule and go, nobody that they've played is of the ilk of Powell High School. And Powell's defensive front gets after it. They're very, very active in the backfield. Their secondary has a number of turnovers this year that they've forced. So this is going to be a difficult matchup for Cooper Newman and Sevier County. I like Powell to win this football game. I just feel like they're a little bit farther ahead as a program than Sevier County. Sevier County is going to be unbelievable in another year or so. I don't know if Tegan Avera is back at running back. He was not in a boot last week, but he was also not dressed out. So I just can't imagine Sevier County just throwing him out there when he's had no reps over the last 6 weeks. And we also don't know Connor Wheeler, the running back at Powell. He was dinged up against West. I don't think he really went much last week at all. So a lot of question marks around this matchup. And when that happens, I'm going to go with the more experienced playoff team, and that's Powell.
Yeah, because I think when you look to the game, like against West that Powell had, that West defense did a good job of kind of shutting down the run game outside of Deuce Rogers. I mean, Deuce Rogers was essentially bigger than some of their linebackers for the West Rebels. And I just think the physical way that he plays, I think will be a big difference maker in this game.
Yeah, the motivation of Matt Lowe, do not underestimate that. That guy will have them mentally locked in.
Our next one is Lenoir City and East Hamilton. East Hamilton's 8-3 on the year. They're region champions. But this is a first-time matchup between these 2 programs.
Lenoir City, I'm sure, loves when I pick against them. I am not doing that this time. I'm not doing that.
You're going to jinx it.
Lenoir City, and this might be Richie Wilhite. He's a defensive coach out there. But they have a defensive blueprint that they use against big-time running backs. And that's all East Hamilton has, is a running back who's run for about 1,500 yards this year. And you look at what they did last week in limiting the run game of Walker Valley. think Walker Valley only had like 35 yards rushing on 23 carries.
Yeah.
So Lenore City, again, has the defensive game plan to stop big-time running backs. It's all about, can Lenore City manufacture points? If they get their running back healthy, which she's getting close, it might be this game. I like Lenore City to win. So give me the Panthers. I told you that Scott Cummings was elated they got that win. I feel like he knows they're playing with house money and that they have a really good chance to advance deep into these playoffs.
Next one is McMinn at Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge won their last meeting. They own the all-time record. They're 1-1 between these two head coaches at McMinn and Oak Ridge. Does Oak Ridge get the edge in this game?
This is not the same Oak Ridge team that beat McMinn County just mercilessly in mid-September. That was, what, a 31-6 game?
I think so.
They no longer have Will Presley. They no longer have Malik Howard, the big tight end who's got the Tennessee offer. They are grinding to just get 7 or 10 points out of their offense. Meanwhile, McMinn County has won 5 of their last 6 football games. All 5 of those wins were dominant wins, not even close to losing. The only loss was to a really good Powell team. So I just feel like you got 2 teams that are on opposite ends of the spectrum. One going in the right direction, one going in the wrong direction. McMinn County's the one going in the right direction.
Yeah. Our next one, we have Bearden and Dobbins-Bennett. Obviously, we're familiar with them after the Farragut win earlier this year. 20-6 was the score, I believe, earlier in the season. They also have that similar matchup in Farragut where they both beat up on Farragut as well. So I think that can make for maybe a high-scoring game or a low-scoring game, depending what versions of these teams show up.
Yep. We talked about on the show last week the advantages of playing on Thursday.
Yeah.
Bearden won that football game. They got an extra day of rest. Josh Jones told me I'm going up personally to Dobbins-Bennett to watch them play, scout them. And so with that grouped together with what I saw out of them in round 1, if they play even remotely close to that, you can't play a flawless game like that again. That's just too much. But if they even come close to 80% of what they did in Jefferson County, this is a Bearden win all the way.
Yeah, love that. Our last one that we'll hit on is Science Hill at Maryville. So Maryville lost in the second round last year. That didn't happen since 1995. They're 11-2 against the team. So do you like them against Science Hill?
A little bit, and I'll tell you why. You look back to what they did earlier in the season. I don't know if you remember that game, but Maryville had to last-minute magic to win that game against Science Hill. What worries me about this game for Maryville, and I'm picking Maryville, by the way, so go ahead and have that on the record.
That game was 23-7 in September, or 23-17 in September.
I'm still picking Maryville to win, but what worries me for Maryville is Price Davis, their star running back. Last week he had 2 carries and 1 catch. So that lets me know that he's dinged up a little bit. They're being really cautious with him. They won that game handily. They didn't need to pound him 25 or 30 times. But if he cannot be effective in this game against a really physical Science Hill team, then Maryville might have to grind out another win over 4 quarters like they did against Science Hill. I don't think Maryville's going to lose in the second round 2 years in a row. That's just unheard of in Maryville history, especially over the last 25 years. So give me the Rebels, but would not surprise me to see this one be a close game again.
Definitely we want to keep a pulse on that one as it comes to Friday. Well, second round to state playoffs, first week of flag football. We have some highlights from those games. Enjoy that as we end our show here for round 2. We'll see you all back here for round 3.
Really proud of you girls.
Lady Mavs on 3. 1, 2, 3, Lady Mavs!
Hey.
Welcome to the Walk-Thru with 5-Star Preps, the ultimate weekly live show that dives deep into the heart of high school football right here in East Tennessee. Powered by Triple F Training. Train like a pro. Each week, Jesse Smithy and the 5-Star Prep team takes you beyond the gridiron and into the stories that define Fall Friday nights in the hills of the Great Smoky Mountains. From the thrilling touchdowns to the hard-hitting tackles and the unsung heroes who make every game unforgettable, we've got it all covered. Join Jesse Smithy as he breaks down this week's biggest games, highlights the standout performances, and gives you the most comprehensive high school football coverage in East Tennessee. Now, catch us live on The Walk-Thru, presented by Triple F Training.
When you shop at Elliott's, your journey is our purpose.
North Knox Siding and Windows is a complete exterior home improvement company that can help you with all your exterior needs. Visit us today at 5618 North Broadway.